Alright, welcome those watching from Magma and Llamaverse. This is Suareezy Student Center, session number 2. The last one we had went over was the pretty much intro to the course that we're going to be going over. And this is for pretty much people who want to learn a little bit more about technical analysis. We did go over a few of the concepts that we're going to be going over in the course, and today is pretty much one of the first ideas or concepts that we're going to go into regarding technical analysis, and that's going to be support and resistance. People want to know, well, what is support and resistance? Support resistance is one of the most widely used concepts in trading. It's basically where areas of a stock or asset that you're looking at is in a current trend and it's likely to be reversed. It's basically the battle between buyers and sellers trying to take control of a price, and this is exactly what creates the support or resistance levels that we're going to be looking at. One of the main things that we're going to go over in this session is how to spot potential support and resistance. I want you guys to know that support and resistance is like air. It's absolutely everywhere. How do we even get them? What are they formed from? We're going to go over that right now. So in the bottom, you have your date, and up top, you got your price action. For a support zone, basically what we're looking for is the stock or the asset will be moving down where demand of shares exceeds supply and price action slows down and potentially reverses. So at points like this, for example, when we see price action heading towards a zone and we start seeing the demand overtaking the amount of supply, that is when we'll start to get areas of potential support. And how we're going to be able to see that is multiple tests of that level. So if you get more than a single test level, then you can ideally take the time to say that that support zone. Going to resistance, when a stock is moving up and the supply of shares exceeds the demand. So again, moving up into a level and where the demand does not exceed the amount of shares. So there's more shares that are available at this area than demand, thus causing a resistance. And again, to see a true resistance, you'd have to see a few touches of that level, kind of like we almost got here as well. So watching for the demand comparative to the amount of supply that is coming in at levels is going to solidify support or resistances. And again, be a winner. The bears or the bulls have to win. So people who are betting that it's going to go up or people that are betting that it's going to go down are going to win. It's going to be one or the other. One of the things too I want you guys to notice is resistance turns into future support, and future support turns into future resistance, and it goes back and forth. This might seem like a very confusing concept because they're one and the same until they break, and we'll be going over exactly how to be able to see these exact transitions from resistance to support or support to resistance. Again, here's just showing the resistance level, again going up where the supply overtakes the amount of demand, meaning there's not enough demand to continue pushing the price higher, thus creating a resistance. Support level doing the actual opposite, coming down into a point where demand is exceeding the amount of shares that are coming in at this point, meaning people are looking to buy this up while there is less shares available, thus creating some type of support. Again, this is just another example of showing resistance and support at these levels, and I want to show you guys a little trick, I guess, that I've kind of learned early on. For those people who have trouble seeing support and resistance, a lot of charts are going to be kind of coming at you like this with candlesticks. For those who've never traded on candlestick charts, it's probably a little confusing to you guys. We'll be going over a lot more depth on exactly how to read candlesticks, but for now, for this intro course to support resistance, One of the main things you can do is change the type of chart to a line chart, and you'd be able to see kind of these support resistance zones a lot cleaner as opposed to watching them on candlesticks. This does not mean to trade on these types of charts. This is just for a visual reference. There's not enough information to be trading off of these levels, but for visual reference, this is a really good intro for people who have trouble seeing this. So I would highly recommend throwing on a line chart if you guys are having trouble seeing potential support and resistance zones. So let's go over the types of support and resistance that we're going to be having. There's a few different ones, and kind of how do we solidify what's strong and what's weak support resistance, because there has to be some type of spectrum there, because one of the main things we're going to be looking at is pretty much three types of support and resistance. We have hidden support resistance, visual support resistance, and psychological support resistance. We'll be going a lot more in depth on the visual ones for the intro part of support resistance course, and then we'll be diving into hidden and psychological numbers as well. But today we're going to be going over visual, and it's pretty much static is what we're going over. We have a few different ways to check support resistance, static and obviously moving support resistance, but for today we're going to be going over static support resistance. So what does that kind of confirm in? So right here we have a portion that says minor resistance, and I want us to see the difference between a minor resistance and a major resistance. So the reason why this is considered a minor resistance is because the amount of time that has accumulated for this resistance to be created, and notice that resistance ended up getting broken through. Up here, notice the time frame that we're playing along for this resistance zone. This here is going to give us a even more major resistance to be looking at. So one of the main factors from differentiating major and minor support resistance is going to be time. Time and amount of taps you get comparative to the last ones. So notice on the minor one you get 1, 2, 3 taps. On the major you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 taps over a way bigger period of time. So here is pretty much the difference of what creates strong versus a weak support resistance. There's also other concepts that dive into this, but that'll be for other courses. But for now, however many times you're seeing an area get touched, that area should be considered either some type of support or some type of resistance. Notice here we got our strong support on the bottom. We got a minor support because we only touched one time. Same thing here, and same thing here. And notice all the smaller support zones have very small time frames comparative here. And the reason this one's considered strong is because it has multiple taps on the bottom to kind of truly support us on that bottoming. So definitely one thing to take a look at is the time that it takes to form these major resistances and major supports, plus the amount of taps that it takes to actually break or hold those potential zones. One of the other things I want to get through your guys' head is we can draw out these levels horizontally on our chart, but I do want you guys to know that even though we draw, let's say, okay, we have a resistance right at this line right here, let's call that $1.22. Just because we have that line drawn and candlesticks are touching that area pretty much to the penny does not mean future price action will respect that zone or respect that exact area. We want to utilize support resistance kind of as an area or a zone, because there are algorithms that will kind of go past that just a little bit. But one of the main things we're going to be looking at is the candlestick closes above the wicks themselves. So notice here our support zone got broken through. That 147 down here ended up getting broken through. You can see that with the candlestick formations that are forming here. But just because that broke does not mean that this is not a support zone anymore. It broke through, but actually kind of held with our candlesticks that are actually forming. Just because the wicks kind of broke through does not mean our support is broken. Same thing kind of on the flip side. If this was a resistance and our wicks kind of went over our line just a little bit, does not solidify that that resistance is actually truly broken. So we will be going into other portions that will help us see if support or resistance is truly being held or not. But again, for now, just know that that exact zone is not always as precise. It's usually kind of an area, if you will. How do we truly know if support or resistance is broken? There is no definite answer to that. Some argue that if you close, or if your candle truly closes beneath that zone, then that it is technically broken. I'd like to defer on that because this is not always the case. Most of the reasoning for these support quote-unquote zones to be broken has a lot to do with math. And we'll be diving way deep into a lot of mathematical calculations on how these algorithms kind of calculate support resistance and how they play off of them. So that is pretty much what I got for today's session. I'm going to jump into the charting portion. Again, for those watching the video, if you can happen to make some time to make these sessions, I think they're very helpful, especially with the questions that are happening at the end. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to tag me up in charting with Suareezy or Suareezy's technical analysis. You can tag me in any of the chats as well, and I'll be more than happy to help you out. We do these every Monday bi-weekly around the same time, 1 p.m. Eastern. So again, if you guys have any questions, do not be afraid to reach out. And this is session 2. We'll be going a lot more in depth on specific support resistances, pretty much going to the next course. So make sure you guys let this marinate, and if you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to tag me up.